So this week there are a number of previews that quote unquote dropped for Donkey Kong Bonanza, and with it comes some interesting information that the development team is apparently the same development team that produced Super Mario Odyssey. And John, curious what you think about this. I mean, you're on point to review the game for us when the time is right, but interesting, right?
Yeah, so we didn't play any of the preview builds, but I went through a lot of the footage that's out there, and to me this always kind of made sense fundamentally because we hadn't seen anything from that team for a while, and there's enough visual flourishes in this, including also the appearance of Pauline, that kind of suggests that yes, this is closely related to people that worked on Super Mario Odyssey, but based on what we're seeing, yeah, I mean, it does seem to essentially be their next big game. And considering that it's been quite a few years since Odyssey, that was a first year Switch title. And I'm sure staff from that game have worked on other titles in the meantime as well. But as far as like that team creating something new, it's pretty exciting to actually have that sort of confirmed finally. And get to see what they're doing here new on Switch. My only concern right now is still like, there's definitely still a little bit of instability in the performance in some of those preview clips, but it does overall look pretty smooth. So we'll hold out hope for the final game at this point. But
Yeah.
I mean, Mario Odyssey was that was like the third in the explorative Mario games. I think Nintendo itself specifically placed it alongside Super Mario 64 and Sunshine as that sort of Mario game, which meant that it was more open-ended and less driven by linear set level designs. And in a sense, it does seem Donkey Kong Bonanza has a lot of similarities in that regard, but at least based on some of the footage in the previews, it does seem to have a little bit more, I don't know, focus perhaps, that I'll be curious to see. And what's really curious about this is like that whole smashing mechanic that they show. It really feels like this would have been a really difficult game to develop in that sense, right? Where they want you to, like, there doesn't seem to be a stamina bar for one, like in so many other games that control the craziness. They kind of let you destroy a lot, but then also there seems to be enough guardrails in place and like materials and things designed to stop the player from destroying stuff. So like building levels that allow like a huge level of freedom, but then also constraining players in just the right way and ensuring none of it breaks while doing so. That seems quite interesting and challenging. So this really seems like this must have been a pretty big undertaking for that team. And I'm happy to see them sort of step into this role as like Nintendo's premier 3D platform development studio.
Right. Oliver, do you see this through line of from Super Mario Odyssey to Donkey Kong Bonanza?
I think there certainly is a conceptual through line, as John stated so eloquently there. But I think for me, it was just more of a visual through line where I thought, this looks a lot like Super Mario Odyssey, just visually in terms of the way the characters look, in terms of the way the environments look. Obviously, it's built out in a way that Super Mario Odyssey was not. It has totally different gameplay mechanics. Obviously, there's this whole destruction system, and it's much denser, I would say. If you look at comparable stages in Super Mario Odyssey with some of the preview footage, like the kind of beach level in Super Mario Odyssey relative to some of the footage they were showing off here, definitely looks a lot better here, but definitely seems of that lineage. I think this is apparently Production Group 8, which is EPD Tokyo.
Right.
And yeah, that is the studio was responsible for Super Mario Odyssey. But the only thing that threw me about this up until this point and did make me kind of wonder, like, is this maybe a third-party studio? Probably not, but is it? Is the fact that Nintendo refused to comment on the developer at all, like very pointedly refused to comment on it. And that's something they often do when a third-party developer is involved, like Grezzo. Now, I still thought this was probably a first-party joint just because of the way that it looked, because of, the apparent pedigree of the title. But was a little bit weird, and they're still refusing to confirm key staff, which again, it's kind of weird. Like, why wouldn't you want to make this a little bit more of kind of your front and center pitch? Like, this is coming from the Super Mario team, because that's a highly acclaimed game. I think people would be more excited about it if they had made that more clear. So that's a little bit confusing to me at the moment.
I agree.
John, can you make any kind of explanation for that?
I've been wondering about this for a while. They've been very sensitive about development studios. And yeah, you're right. It's mostly been third-party developed games. or partner studios. But
Mm-hmm.
you're right. This is it didn't used to be so much this way, but it feels like in the last few years they've definitely taken on this sort of like air of secrecy where they don't really want to tell anybody who's developing it. Like I'm halfway expecting that the credits are just going to list like random like nicknames instead of actual people, just like the old 8-bit days or something. Because back in the when games first were like becoming an industry, developers didn't want, or studios didn't want development names to be known because for fear of poaching and whatnot, right? Sharing secrets,
Right.
and they would actually kind of actively hide that stuff. So like it feels like we're seeing shades of that again somehow, which is really, really weird. I really don't understand. I mean, we don't know enough about what business reasons they have for behaving this way. I mean, it could even be something as innocuous as they just wanted it to be a surprise for people, but it's probably not.
Yeah. And Nintendo, sometimes with their developers, they do have very public-facing development stuff. Obviously, Shigeru Miyamoto, but
Right.
also with Legend of Zelda, Eiji Aonuma.
Aonuma, yeah.
He's very, very public when he's talking about his new Zelda titles. So there is a bit of a split, decision within Nintendo, whether to showcase their development partners or whether to not really show off their studios there.
Okay. Well, Donkey Kong Bonanza, it's coming out July 17th, I believe.
Not soon.
And I know you're looking forward to
Can't
reviewing
wait.
it, John.
Yep.
So I guess, well, we weren't involved in the previews, so I guess the first sort of Digital Foundry stuff you'll see will likely be the review. I'm certainly looking forward to seeing what you come up with, John.